All right, moving on to Buy, Rent, Burn, our continuing segment of the podcast where we look at 3 games. Each of us picks one, take a look at them, and we decide which of the 3 we would personally buy, rent, or burn. And up this week, we've got a selection from Andy, Widget, for the NES. This is an Atlas title. It was released in 1992. Justin has gone with 3 Dirty Dwarves for the Sega Saturn. Appaloosa Interactive looks to be the publisher, and it was released in 1997. And myself, I have gone with Biohazard Battle for the Sega Genesis. Looks to be Sega published, and that was also released in 1992. So to kick things off, Andy, let's get into Widget.
Sure, yeah. Widget is a NES game published by Atlas, which probably not a lot of people know that they were even around back then. They didn't develop it, I don't believe. But it's a platformer action game, but it looks amazing to me. I really like the colors and the animation in that game, but there's definitely some frustrating parts. But overall, I think it's a pretty decent game. It is based on a cartoon from the early 90s, which I didn't even know existed. Had no idea. I rented this game when I was a young boy and had a lot of fun with it, enough to actually remember it today. But yeah, now I might have to go back and check out that cartoon. I'm sure it's awful, but...
Yeah, I had no idea. No idea there was a cartoon called Widget. It looked like something that Hanna-Barbera would do.
So I definitely don't want to watch it.
Probably not.
I had a lot of fun with it, but there was a lot of frustration kind of going back to this game. I got to some points where I don't think I had enough MP to unlock the special item that I needed to get across something. So, like, I just had to leave the level. And I don't know if that was, like, the way you're supposed to do it, but it seemed like I was completely stuck. Did you guys ever run into that?
I didn't run into that, but I definitely ran into like some frustrating level design where they were very blatantly kind of cheap with enemy placements. You know, enemies put in positions where they're designed to knock you back into pits for instant deaths. And then, you know, there's definitely a lot of the type of large gaps, especially early on in the game, where it's like if you didn't get a full moving jump, you were not going to make that gap, followed by an enemy sitting there that you couldn't see off screen. So that was kind of frustrating. Not that the design of the game wasn't well done. You know, the art style is good. The controls are tight. You know, the power-up system, all of that's good. I just think that there's kind of some dirty pool when it came to the level design itself.
Oh, for sure. And, well, any game with knockback can get frustrating, right? If you have precise jumps. Mm-hmm. But one of the worst offenses, I think, in this game that I ran across was... your shooting wasn't consistent. So depending on how many enemies were on screen, I think the limitation of the NES was how many bullets you could put out at one time. Because there was often times that I could only put one bullet out, and then a little bit later I could do as many as I wanted. And like that's not cool in a game. You know, you need to keep that consistent.
I found the closer the enemies were to you, the faster you could fire. But if you were shooting across screen, you had to wait forever before you could fire again.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
So it was like 1 or 2 bullets on screen, that's it. So as soon as the one hit, you could fire again. But if they're, yeah.
Yeah, I did like how, you know, when he's shooting his gun, he, you know, closes his one eye like he's aiming down the sights. That's
right.
Kind of a cool, interesting touch.
Yeah, it was a nice little animation. I appreciated that too. I didn't like, it's kind of funny too, like right off the bat, speaking of like cheap level design, in that very first level, like there's enemies underneath a second platform that you can't get to at all, so you're just constantly having to avoid their shots from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a fitting introduction to the level design of that game.
Yep. And I don't remember, like, I didn't obviously play all the way through it, but I don't know if you're supposed to return to those levels to get to those areas.
Oh, that could be.
Eventually you do unlock like a little mouse guy that can get into smaller areas.
Well, there was stuff down there, I think.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, I just don't know if you have to return or what.
Could be that maybe there's probably more depth to it than I even realized. I didn't give it a whole lot of time. I mean, I played a fair amount, but I didn't to be honest, like I wasn't real patient with the game, so I didn't get super far in levels because I would just try and push through, which is definitely not the way to play a game like that. You got to take your time.
No, I definitely wanted to unlock all the gun upgrades as well, and I never did get to that, so I don't know what that looks like either. That would have been something neat to see, but...
Yeah. Well, at the very least, it seems like a very well-designed and built game for the later end of the NES life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Justin, you went with 3 Dirty Dwarves.
I did. I guess it's a side-scrolling type game, beat-em-up type. You have 3 different characters. You can play up to 3 players, but you do have 3 characters. They don't have a health meter, so when you get hit enough times, your guy just goes away. You can summon them back or get them back with picking up. I guess it's D&D based. I didn't realize that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's got a little bit of information on that. You're playing as the 3 dwarves summoned by a group of kids that are kidnapped while playing Dungeons and Dragons. So the items in there are like a D&D dice that gives you a power-up. So that's how you get your people back. 3 different characters have different attacks. One is, I think it was a shotgun. The other one's got a baseball bat. I don't remember what the other one has.
I think a bowling ball.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I just remember playing that game quite a bit. When a friend would come over, he'd bring a Saturn over, and we'd play it.
Because you can do up to 3-player cooperative on that, right?
Yep. So each person would then control a character. You pick which one you want to be, and then I think it just goes... I didn't actually get to play it because I don't have a Saturn, but I think like the order you're in, if you get hit, then you have to wait until you get brought back into the game, and then you have to wait for the other 2 to die to actually play again. I don't remember for sure, but the one I watched a few videos, and it was all single player videos is what I could find. I remember it being quite a bit of fun. I think it's also on PC, but
yeah, I think you're right.
I played it on Saturn.
It's got a very good art style. And like I like the animated cutscenes in between levels and stuff. Definitely didn't look like anything else, especially at that time. You know, to see a 2D brawler like that, you know, some 3D elements in 97 when that came out. That's kind of unique.
Yeah, I absolutely loved how it looks. At first I was surprised that you were bringing a porno to this section of our podcast. And I wasn't going to kink shame you, but then I did a little bit of research, and yeah, also don't have this game. I do have a Saturn, but this game is unfortunately, like most other Saturn games, a little pricey. So I watched a few videos, and it really definitely is something that would probably be up my alley. So if I find it cheap enough, I think I'm going to have to grab that to try it out. Yeah,
definitely. I don't think I've ever come across this game, even at like a convention or anything, at least. Or maybe it's not been on my radar either. That's probably part of it, but it's got to be a little bit more uncommon.
Yeah, I believe so. They definitely have a lot of frames of animation and a lot of hand-drawn art, it seems like, so it's really cool.
Yeah, and the scrolling background stuff looks amazing.
Yeah.
The Saturn was really good at that, like hand-drawn sprites.
Yeah, this is probably one of like 3 games I ever really played on the Saturn, and this was one of the main ones just because it's fun when playing with other people.
Especially in like a beat-em-up genre like that, where it's easy to get repetitive and boring. It makes it a lot more enjoyable when you can play with a couple other people at the same time, co-op.
Yeah.
Right.
The music was pretty good in it too, from the Let's Plays I watched. Definitely very 90s for the time it came out, and very Sega sounding.
Yeah. Speaking of Sega, you actually brought a Sega Genesis game. That's supposed to be me.
I know. I was going to turn things on its head this week. Change it up a little. I did. I went with Biohazard Battle, which is a side-scrolling shooter for the Genesis. Everything's kind of got like an organic feel to it. Like all the ships you take are somewhat space alien, sea creature, insectish looking, as are all the enemies in the game. It's got your typical power-up system where it's colored. I think there's 4. Is there red, yellow, green, and blue?
4 or 5.
Yeah. And then as you continue to collect colors, they're the same colors. It stacks up power-ups. So it kind of reminded me, a lot of like Blazing Lasers or something in how you play that, where you spend almost as much time avoiding the wrong color as you do trying to shoot the enemies coming on screen. But just the art style of it, I think the music's very good. You can tell right off the bat. It's got a great soundtrack, but then the art style, just the way they animated the enemies, everything looks so like organic and kind of disgusting, and great, like really crisp. I think there's is it that third stage where that leech like pops out of a log, and just the way that thing moves is just kind of mind blowing for a Genesis game. And I'm not real great at shooters, but I enjoy this one. I can progress a few levels in before I, can't make it any further.
Yep. Well, I do have one small correction for you. It's not called Biohazard over here. It's called Resident Evil.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I should have got that. Resident Evil Battle.
No, I played this one quite a bit, actually. I don't know. It's interesting because it is a Sega published game. Most of the Genesis shooters are like Compile or, the mainstays that's pretty much all they do is shooters.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of cool that they just kind of threw their hat in their ring and made something similar, but it's also kind of different too. The enemies are huge compared to a lot of those, like Konami and other shooters. But right off the bat, you're kind of going down diagonally, which is kind of a trick. Obviously it's just scrolling that way. It's not the background scrolling that way. It's actually not doing anything, but it's a different feel right off the bat. And like you said, the art as you go through is pretty cool. It's not the same thing over and over. It's not oh, here's a planet, and here's some asteroids here, and the enemies are kind of interesting. I also like the little option guy that follows you or is next to you.
Oh yes, thank you. I couldn't think of what they were called.
Yeah, they you kind of use the controller in the opposite direction of where you want to shoot almost, because it shoots the backside of whatever direction you're going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of weird that way. I don't know if I've ever seen a game that kind of has that system.
A Neo Geo game, Last Something, that uses the same control with the option. It sort of reminded me of. It's the only other game I can think of that does it like that.
Yeah.
I should look that up.
It's something to get used to for sure. It's not something that comes right away.
Definitely.
I felt that if it was on an arcade cabinet with that type of handle, it would have been much easier to play it.
Yeah.
I had trouble with the aiming of that.
Last Resort, that's the game that controls the same from Neo Geo.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the control thing comes into play because, like you said, there's a lot of large sprites on screen, and even for a shooter, your ship is pretty large for that screen, so I think it's hard sometimes to evade stuff because it just kind of pops out of nowhere, and you do have a larger ship, so it makes controlling the game a little hard.
Yeah, I felt like it's zoomed in.
Right.
More than a lot of other games are. A lot of shooters.
I would agree. All right, so now that we've gotten through our picks and kind of talked about it a little bit, let's go back through and decide which of those we would buy, rent, and burn. And Andy, we can kick that off with you again.
Sure. So, this is a tough pick for me, I think. If I would have played 3 Dirty Dwarves, I think that might have probably been my buy. But I don't know if I'd feel comfortable putting it up there without playing it, not having the right feel of it. So I'll probably say my buy is Biohazard Battle. I do enjoy shooters, even though I'm not great at them. I don't think it's a top tier shooter on the Genesis by any means, but I think it's still pretty enjoyable. And then for my rent, I'm going to do Widget, which is a rental that I had quite a bit in the past. I know I've done it a few times. I enjoy it even today, but it's definitely got some playability issues as far as design and just overall feel of it. And sadly, I'll have to put 3 Dirty Dwarves down in burn, even though I don't think it deserves burn in the classical sense of how the show has been going.
But given we don't have another option, it kind of falls there, I guess.
Right. Like, I hate to say it's a burn, especially if I have not played it.
How about we'll just say for this episode it's the back burner, and we'll get to it when we get a chance to actually play it.
There we go. Yeah, so I think Three Dirty Dwarves is probably something that I might return to if I ever get the chance to play it. How about you, Justin?
I would have to go, I guess. My buy would be Three Dirty Dwarves, just because I played it quite a bit when I was younger. A friend would come over, like I said before. My rent would be Widget. Just the gameplay behind that was kind of frustrating, but again, it was fun. And I'm not a big fan of the shooting type games for the like Biohazard Battle was. Played them quite a few times at MGC. I can't think of what the one game is that we played over and over again that I hated, but that one reminded me of it, so it's going to be my burn.
It kind of makes me sad a little.
You're gonna fuck on me!
Oh, alright. So, my buy, I guess, would be Biohazard Battle. I don't know, I'm not a big shooter guy, but there are certain shooter games that, especially since I've gotten a TurboGrafx, that just kind of really click with me, that I like to sit down and go through every once in a while. And Biohazard Battle is one of those. I think, for me, it's one of the better shoot-em-ups I've played. I just like the visual style. I like the music, so that would be my pick. I would buy that one. Widget, I think, would be next up for me for a rental. It's a well put together game, but it's definitely something that I could see myself just putting down and not coming back to for a while. But it is something that I definitely like to pick up from time to time, and one that I'll probably try and add to my NES collection now. And then on the back burner, I guess I'm going to throw Three Dirty Dwarves, because again, I don't like Andy. I didn't get a chance to play it. I own a Saturn, but not the game, and I've not had any previous experience with it. And being Saturn's kind of hard to emulate, I didn't really get to do anything other than watch Let's Plays. I think it looks like a great game, though, and it's definitely one I'm going to be keeping an eye out for going forward. So yeah, a little bit of an unconventional buy, rent, burn.
So you can go to weekendpodcast.com to make your vote on our buy, rent, burn. We'd love to hear from you. We record your vote and throw your email in there, and you'll get notified every time a new vote goes live. So we definitely want to hear from you.
You can even add comments now, can't you?
Yep, yes. For sure.
So tell us how much we suck.
You have to say. Yep, that's weekendpodcast.com.
Go there now.